So shaping behaviors and what does that really boil down to? Talking about the desired behaviors and the different things that we are looking for when we are working with our horses. And we're looking for them to do an exercise correctly. And with that exercise, when it's correct, so such as the half moon, we talk a lot about the half moon and getting that bend and getting them to step over and getting the hindquarters over. If your horse were doing it and legging the hindquarters and just not moving the hindquarters, for example, that would come back to responsiveness. So one of the desired behaviors that we look for, that we need to get our horse doing when we work on liberty or any kind of training, is getting them responsive to our cues. So if you were to ask your horse to back up and he pushes through your whips, as we saw today earlier, a little bit
Mm-hmm.
earlier, right? That is also responsiveness. He's not being responsive. Another thing would be is if we ask our horse to move out onto a lunge line, for example. Let's just say we have a lead rope, a halter and lead rope out on them, and we're asking them to lunge, and the horse is just like, okay, all right, I'll go today, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like today, where they're just kind of moseying on. That is also responsiveness. So I was talking with a client just after you, Rose, about responsiveness today, because her horse is very non-responsive. He is one that looks like he's just walking off to his own funeral. And so we need to get them to respect that when we say to do something, we mean to do it right then. And then it becomes black or white behavior. Is if you don't do it right then, and you should know this is something we've worked on, then I am going to have to reinforce that in some way, the behavior that I do want, and reinforce that I don't want this other behavior. So here's an example. I just came in from outside, and I was working my Liberty team of now 3 horses. I'm proud to say that I have Matanui, Magica, and Dalton working together as a team. Is it a perfect team yet? No, it's not. Are they ready to perform yet? Absolutely not. Because there's too many things that I still need to go back to and reinforce, that when we're working with 3 horses. And Maud is still fairly new in the team atmosphere. So she's just only recently started working with Magica. She recently started working with Dalton. And now I put her in the middle of Magica and Dalton. And everybody's like, whoa, wait a minute. Magic and Dalton are like, wait a minute. No, we're supposed to be next to each other. And then Dalton's like, well, maybe this will be my my opportunity to sneak away and nobody will notice,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He hasn't left or anything, but it's been more of drift away. He's my drifter.
Yeah.
And so you see these dynamics going on, and and you really have to, it becomes this black or white behavior, right? So when it comes to responsiveness, we can think about having them speed up, but we can also think about having them slow down. So Mott wants to race Magica when Magica's on the outside. Mott wants to race Dalton when he's on the outside. It becomes a race, and that's a very common thing. Magica and Dalton had to learn that they couldn't do it. But now Mott's in this mix, and she's like, I want to race. And so I have to get her responsive by saying, Mott, slow, or Mott, step up, Mott, trot, but not go supersonic 500 miles an hour, right? Uh, so so at first, when I was first teaching her, it had to be Mott, step up. And when she started offering that, as soon as I said it, without me having to reach back and kind of tap her on the butt, then I had to reward that. That's responsiveness. She's
Mhm.
offering it, she's responsive. So now today, what our focus was Mott, slow. And So when I say mott slow, if you don't slow down, the stick's coming up in your face, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
right there, like, oh crap, I gotta stop. It's there's a blockade in front of me. And now what's happening, is that she's completely stopping, and she doesn't just slow down yet. I need to keep her going. So I'm gonna have to, put the stick up there if she, doesn't slow when I say slow, and then in the background and the other stick tell her don't keep going, and teach her how to do it. But I'm looking for responsiveness. So there's responsiveness if she stops without me putting the stick up. So if I don't put the stick up there and I say mott slow and she slows down, that would be a desired behavior that I would want to reward because that is my goal, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's what I mean by responsiveness. Responsiveness could be anything from speeding a horse up to them offering something super light. You've been backing your horse up and working on getting that willingness, and then you go and back them up the next time. Say you've done it about 5 times, and then you go to back them up, and right away they give you softness, even though you've been doing 10 steps before. But that's because it took you 6 steps to get willingness and
Mhm.
softness, right? But
Right.
now we did it and they offered softness. I would release right there and say, yes, that's
Yeah.
responsiveness. Yes, I want to reward that type of desired behavior. So that's what I mean by that. Okay. So the next one is calmness. We want our horses to have an element of being calm when they are working with us. So we never want them to fear us or our tools. We don't
Hmm.
we don't want them to be reactive. So some horses are reactive. I don't see that in your horse, but this is knowledge for you in the future. If you're ever
Right.
working with a horse that does become reactive, for example, is reactive, and I've seen, and here's an example. I'll send a reactive horse out onto uh, a lunge line, for example. Maybe it was a horse that said, nah, I don't want to move my feet. They didn't have the responsiveness. So because they didn't have the responsiveness, I got on them and reinforced that my cue and said, you need to go now, right?
Hmm.
So I'm picturing your horse as I'm telling you to back up, saying back him up, and he's kind of trying to push through and go forward, right? Right there is where you want to get on him. But now let's just say they get reactive over it.
Uh-huh.
You create that, you fix one problem, but you create another sometimes. Well, then
Yep.
you got to go back to rewarding the calm behavior, but not the pushy behavior, right? So
Yep.
if I send a horse out on a lunge line and I tell them to go, and they go, but it's reactive, I'm not going to reward that. I'm going to wait until they relax. I was working with another client recently. She started doing another type of lesson with me where she is starting a horse under saddle, and she decided to just do that. I don't have a program put out for that, but I'm working with her individually in separate virtual coaching sessions to do that. And
Hmm.
she got her this horse started in her saddle, but when she was first working this horse lunging, she would send this horse out, and I don't know if you've ever worked a cutting horse before, but that's kind of what it reminded me of. Is they're a little bit more go 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 and a little more reactive, right?
Hmm.
And because that's bred in them. And in order to slow them down, you have to wait until they show a sign of relaxation, and while they're out there going going going. And the moment that you see them relax out there, the moment they quit pulling on the lead rope, you reward that. You stop right there. That's
Uh-huh.
another big one too, is pulling on the lead rope. That's another, uh, and I would put that under calmness, because in general, when they're pulling on the lead rope, they're really trying to get away from you.
Hmm.
And that's,
Right.
and that's what it is. But if you can because they're just being reactive. Like, I need to get away from you because you got that stick, and you might use that on me if I don't do the right thing. I don't know, but so we want to really reinforce and recognize the calmness, even if our goal today is for them to lope around us, say 3 times. Let's just say we were saying 3 times. I want you to lope around me. But all of a sudden they do it and they take off in a calm way. My goal at that moment shifts because calmness becomes a priority. If you give me calmness in that moment, I'm going to give it back to you. I'm going to reward that and say, yes, that's what I want. So going
Mm-hmm.
back to backing your horse up, we wanted impulsion and we got impulsion, but let's just say somewhere in that line of trying to get impulsion, they gave us willingness and softness. I'm going to reward that.
Uh-huh.
I reward that. And then I'll come back to rewarding the impulsion, but I need to reward that consistently if you're going to offer that to me. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Focus. Focus is another one. When we are working our horses at liberty, especially, it is so important that we have their attention and their focus, because where their attention and focus are is where they are going to end up going with their body. So mentally, if they've mentally left us, they will physically leave us. And so I want to reward focus when I can. Now, that doesn't mean that just because I'm doing the Liberty Circle and they're giving me focus, that I'm going to reward that at that moment. But I might reward it initially if I'm teaching them. Remember, we went back to the attention, focus, and relaxation exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And the reward that they're getting is that I'm no longer asking them to pivot. I'm rewarding you giving me that focus.
Mm-hmm.
Same can be in a Liberty Circle. I might not stop and give them a treat at that moment, but if I can see them start to lose focus on me and start to counterbend, I'll probably step towards the hindquarters to draw their eye to me. And they will get a reward in that by me stepping back and just drawing them to me, and they'll get a reward. So if not, what happens is if I don't get their focus, I might reach out and snag those hindquarters to push those hindquarters away. So then I'm not going to reward them not giving me focus. That's why I put a lot of emphasis on doing a whistle as a bridge cue to get their focus and to get their attention. It means pay attention to me. And I will give that double whistle. And that means pay attention, look at me. And then they get a reward because I'm not going to come after their hindquarters if they do. So those are things that we always need to be thinking about with those desired behaviors. Okay, here's another one. We kind of touched on this a little bit already, a little bit different, but willingness, responsiveness, we touched about. And when we get a responsive horse, we generally are having a willing horse to do it. But this is
Mm-hmm.
even more willing. This is a horse that is, you can tell they are honest and they are given every effort. And even if they're not quite getting it completely right, and it's not you, but they're really working at it and they're getting better, that will be something that you want to reinforce in approximations. That's why we
Mm-hmm.
build things in smaller approximations to shape those behaviors. And what do I mean by that? I've been teaching Mott how to lay down. And to teach a horse to lay down, we teach them in the most natural way possible, in the way that they lay down, the way
Mm-hmm.
that is natural to them, but we just add cues to it. So we take something natural and just add a cue to it, and then eventually we can fade some of those cues and make it just one cue. But I'm looking for willingness, and so right now the first step is just to ask her to drop her head. I tap the ground. And if she drops her head, that's willingness. Okay. Now, eventually, that's a cue that I should, let me back up. The first step is to tap the ground, and they're probably not going to lower their head. Then you tap their belly, and they might lower their head. And if they don't, you can use the lead rope to help them lower their head. Eventually, you fade away the lead rope and you tap the ground, you tap the belly, and they'll lower their head. Then you start to get, and so when they do that, that's responsiveness. But let's just say I go one time, I'm thinking I'm going to have to tap the belly, but I go to tap the ground and they lower their head. Even if the head doesn't come all the way down to the ground, right there, that's willingness. My
Mm-hmm.
goal is to get it down to the ground. And maybe I've been getting it down to the ground, but I tapped the ground for the first time. I didn't have to tap her belly.
Yeah.
And so bam, okay, then you expand it, same thing, tap the ground, lower the head, didn't quite get the head lower all the way, tap the ground more, brings the head down, reward that, because I didn't have to tap the belly.
Uh-huh.
Even if she didn't get all the way down, that's at first, that's the initial approximation. Now let's just say we've been doing this for 5 days. Well, she should know it a little bit more. So my tap the ground is going to be shorter between tap the ground and tap the belly if I know she knows that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the willingness is something I want to reward. Now we move on. Tap the ground, head comes all the way down. Now we start to ask the back legs to come in, one leg at a time. We got to just focus on one leg. We can focus on one leg, focus on the other one another day. And there's different methods. So, I mean, there's target
Mm-hmm.
training. I use target training for some of it. Every horse is a little bit different in how they do the lay down. But right now, I just need responsiveness to move that leg forward. Initially, I might even look for responsiveness of just to move the leg when I touch it. Touch the leg, move it in a specific spot because I don't want you moving it when I go and pick up your leg. I just, you know, big difference. So tap the ground again, head comes down, tap the leg, because eventually tap the ground should mean all of it. But tap the ground, head comes down, tap the leg, and leg comes in until it comes in. Great, reward that. That's responsiveness. Now let's go back to willingness. Tap the ground, head comes down, leg comes in. Guess what? That's willingness. Bam. It doesn't have to come in far, even though it's coming farther before. It came in, there was an effort.
Yeah.
And that, I'm going to say, my goal and my expectation just shifted. So I always tell people, have an expectation with your horse, but your expectation needs to change based on where your horse is willing. If they've never been willing to do that before and they gave you willingness, reward that.
Mm-hmm.
Give that 100% reward. So that's how that works. Okay. Respect. Respect is another one that I like to reward as a desired behavior. And that that goes without saying is, let's just say you're working 3 horses and all of a sudden they get excited and they start coming for you, but they realize you're there and they just kind of chill. This is a real story, by the way, happened earlier.
Wow.
True story.
Oh boy.
Happened earlier. They were racing. All of a sudden, let's race. And then it was like, whoa, 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 wait. Mom's here. Mom's standing there. We need to respect that we can't run into her and we can't run her over
Yeah.
and chill out. That is a rewardable, I don't want to call it an offense, but it's an offense.
Yeah.
An offense
Right.
because of the fact that they speeded up and they weren't supposed to, but they respected me and didn't run me over when they
Yeah.
were focused on them. They looked, it was like, whoo, especially Mott being new and the one instigating the race, by the way, the Indy 500 there. And so there's different things that we want to do to get our horses respecting us. Now, another way that we might have reward respect, I have something that I do with my horses where I side pass them from behind as a team.
Oh,
And
gee.
yeah, and Mott will learn that too. Today was the first stage of her learning it, but they had to learn it together with me in front of them as a team first. All three of them. So that means Magica pushes into Mott pushes into Dalton, and then so on and so forth. So um
Mm.
and then Dalton's going to have to push into Mott. I still have to do that yet, and so I'm just thinking because when I'm behind, actually, I've taught it from the other way where Dalton pushes into Magica. So Dalton's going to have to push into Mott, but I needed to start it someplace, right? And they have to learn how to be comfortable with that, especially when you want to make your Liberty Circle bigger. It becomes the half moon with all three horses. I want to do half moon,
Oh,
right?
boy.
Yeah. So yeah, the challenges are real, but the respect that you need to have. Now imagine you tell them to stop and you walk around back behind them and they don't walk forward. That's great. Because if they start walking forward and walking away because you went behind them, then that I want to reward that behavior, that they respected me and stopped and waited for my cue, that I went behind them and they didn't walk forward, they didn't drive forward. I don't want them to go forward. And so I want to reward that kind of respect, that they're respecting my cue. So those are things that I look for
Mhm.
when I'm working with my horses. Some of the things that maybe will shift. I have a goal of getting them to do whatever. But along the way, in order to reach that goal, I have to open my eyes and recognize these small things that will help me shape that behavior, that black and
Mhm.
white stuff. Another one is consistency. So rewarding consistency within the behavior. So if I'm asking Mott to do the lay down, tap the ground, head comes down all the way to the ground. And if she does that 3 times, that's, and when I ask all 3 times, that's consistency. Because eventually I might not reward it once I know she knows. I might just go to tap the ground and then tap the leg, right? But
Mhm.
if I just tap the ground, let's just say I tap the ground 1 time. I don't even have to tap it 3 times or 4 times or anything like. I tap it 1 time, or I just crouch down, and she consistently and willingly gives that to me, and she does that 3 times. That's consistency of that desired behavior. I'm going to recognize that and reward that.
Mhm.
It might seem like it's going to take me a little bit longer to get to my ultimate goal of getting her to lay down, but let me tell you, it is actually the opposite. It will make the ultimate goal faster because she's getting reinforced. She's getting clarity in what I'm looking for, because in the end, I'm going to have that anyway. And,
Yes. Yep.
and she's doing it willingly. I'm not having to force anything. So keep consistency in mind and really reward that consistency in the initial stages.
Mhm.
And then the last one on desired behaviors that we look for as we're shaping a behavior, a full behavior, is the duration. The duration of how long they hold a certain exercise, or how many times they are doing a certain maneuver. So, such as a Liberty Circle. We go from, when we first do a Liberty Circle, we go from a quarter circle and rewarding that and getting that consistently 3 clean loops. And then we'll do a half a circle. That's duration. That is duration. I want to reward that. Let's just say horse lays down for the first time. That's great. Just laying down, duration, to me, probably not even in the ballpark. But as
Mhm.
probably the next couple of days when I'm teaching them to lay down, I want them to hold it just a tad bit longer. 1 second, 2 second, 3 seconds. I'll even give them grain to make sure that they're holding it and having that duration. So another example of duration, and as I wait, I think Rose is stuck. I know this is going to be a replay, but I'm going to take a drink here quick. So another example of duration is going to be when we ask our horse to give us a specific maneuver, such as pivoting the hindquarters. And we've got them pivoting, once already, but then we might ask them for 2 in a row or 3 in a row or 360 degrees of pivoting those hindquarters. That is also duration. So we have duration in time, duration in maneuvers. That is something that we need to reward. So if I ask my horse to rear and they rear and they hold it up longer, I am going to reward that, but I'm going to count in my head 1, 2, 3, 4. And then from that day on, they only get rewarded when they get to 4 or greater. And so those are some things that I like to reward. Okay, so the primary goal, and I think I just lost Rose. So the primary goal is always, always, always going to be to reward and reinforce desired behaviors. That is the goal. What do I mean by that? I want to, and this is why I listed all of these other things prior to this, is I want my horses to get as much reinforcement as possible when I am working with them, because they will tend to continue giving me those behaviors, those desired behaviors, when they are getting reinforced and rewarded for the desired behaviors. So when I put Magica and Dalton together, Magica really struggled. She wanted to push Dalton out of the Liberty Circle. She would use her shoulder. Some things I'm seeing Mott trying to do a little bit. And so I want to catch the desired behavior. I want to catch when we're not shoving our shoulder into our teammate and we are giving a nice little bend and focused on me. I'm going to catch that. I'm going to reward it and reinforce it. So I'm going to reward and reinforce the behavior I want and ignore or correct the behavior I don't want. So that's some black and white. Okay, so common examples, and I have no idea what happened to the number 1 here, how that ended up that way, but the original file does not have that. But anyway, okay, so common examples of some things that we may be looking for in our exercises that we're doing at Liberty. So looking again for relaxation, might be looking for bend. So if your horse is out on a Liberty circle and you've taught at Liberty, you want to teach it to your horse to bend at Liberty, and we're just going to reward that. Even if your horse can do a Liberty circle twice around you, we want to maybe go back to thinking about, hey, my horse isn't bending, let's reinforce that bend. Maybe impulsion is what we need to reward. This is a common problem that people have, where their horse is just not driving forward and moving forward because there's just no impulsion. They're a little bit on the lazy side, or as I like to say it, they like to conserve energy. So you're laughing, huh? Are you back with me, Rose?
Yes,
Okay.
I am. I had a little glimpse there.
Okay, good, good. So anyway, so if your horse has no impulsion, we need to get them impulsion first, and that's ask, command, get that impulsion. And then when we have that impulsion, we want to reward that impulsion. So that might be our goal. That's a common goal that we might have. And then once we do that, then we're going to take that impulsion and reward duration of that impulsion. And then we might take the impulsion, and then once we have duration of the impulsion, and then we want to reward bend in that impulsion, for example. So, thinking about what do we need to have first? What do we need to have second, third, and so on. So anyway, suppleness and willingness, we've already kind of touched on that. Respectful, we've already touched on that. So, if I send my horse out onto a lunge circle, for example, because by the time you get to Liberty Circle, your horse should be pretty respectful of you. But if I send my horse out into a lunge circle, for example, and they're kicking at me because I told them to move their feet, uh, I definitely want respectful behavior. So I'm going to be looking for respectful behavior and reward that. There's an exercise I do. It's a sending exercise where I send my horses that I work with, training horses. I'll send them over objects, through objects. I'll send them in a trailer, whatever. And I have a Mustang that I've been working with that she does not like anything under her feet, and it's a client Mustang, and she, for example, she was so afraid of going over this pole, even though she was doing it. She was doing it. I got her going over it, but she was still really reactive when she'd go over it. And she started getting to a point where she was being disrespectful and trying to, when she'd go past it, she would try to pull the lead rope out of my hands, and actually gave me a rope burn one day when she did it, because the first time she did it, I wasn't completely ready for it. I'm always ready for it, but it was, still, when it happens, it happens. But um, anyway, that was not respectful. So she kept trying that a few more times, and she didn't get away with it. Finally, even though she was a little bit reactive, but she didn't pull on the lead rope and didn't try to do that, she was respectful. I actually rewarded that behavior, and that helped her to become more comfortable as she went over uh, those poles. So we're still working on it. She's had a few days off now, but we're still working on it. But anyway, achieving approximations is another, just a common example. Obviously, if your horse is achieving the approximation or the expectation that you have set, such as, hey, I just want you to do a quarter circle at Liberty, around me, and that's it, just a quarter circle at a trot. Or let's just say you've been doing at a trot, now you're teaching them to lope, and you're just going to do a quarter circle. That's my expectation. I'm going to reward the duration of it, but I'm also going to reward the fact that you are achieving that approximation. So that is something that I want to keep in the back of my mind of what I want to reward, because where you reward and getting quick at rewarding that is what's going to help you in your horsemanship and in your training. Timing is everything. The immediacy of everything you do. And Rose, I think you kind of got that a little bit today, is get a little bit faster, right? Get a little bit faster so
Yes.
that you are either what's that? What'd you
Yes,
say?
most definitely got to get quicker.
Yes, yes. Like I said, be a samurai. That's my word of the day. But
Yeah.
you definitely have to reward quickly and correct quickly. And don't release after the correction and go back into it, because timing is everything. So we want them to correlate the correction with the fact that they did something wrong, or they gave us the wrong maneuver, and then we're the wrong answer, and that there's a more correct answer that we have. So, all right. So that's what I have for today. What questions do you have?